Good evening, everyone. Welcome to AI Curate Webinar Specials CXO series. Today's topic is research and innovation in AI, the next frontier. Today we have with us Professor Arnab Laha, Professor of Analytics at Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad, and Mr. Sundara Ramalingam, Head of Deep Learning Practice at NVIDIA, India. This session will be moderated by Samir Dhanvajani, CEO and co-founder, AI Curate Advisory and Consulting. Before we start the session, I would like to mention a few housekeeping rules. Firstly, request everyone to be on mute for better listening experience by all. For Q&A, please place your questions in the chat window. I'll send those questions to Samir to be taken up for Q&A. This webinar is being recorded and this playback video will be made available on our website, www.aicurate.ai. Please do visit our website for playback videos of all past CXO series webinars. Now, would like to introduce Professor Arnab. Professor Arnab Laha is a member of the faculty of the Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad. He takes a keen interest in understanding how analytics, machine learning, and artificial intelligence can be leveraged to solve complex problems of business and society. He has been named as one of the 20 most prominent analytics and data science academicians in India by Analytics India magazine in 2018. Earlier, he had been named amongst India's best business school professors by Business Today in 2006 and Business India in 2012, and was named as one of the 10 most prominent analytics academicians in India by Analytics India magazine in 2014 and 2017. Professor Arnab is on the editorial board of a prominent international journal on statistical analysis and data mining. Professor Arnab, it's an honor to have you with us in this webinar today. Now to introduce Sundara Ramalingam is the head of deep learning practice at NVIDIA India. He is a mechanical engineer and has a master's in business administration. He has a strong technical background and his areas of interest include deep learning, big data analytics, IoT, and automotive solutions. He has more than 20 years of experience in solutions involving visual computing, virtualization, and high-performance computing. For making time to be with us today. I would now like to hand over to Samir. Samir, over to you.
Thanks, NK, for the introductions. May I request everyone to go on mute? Great. This is our 19th webinar, and I was talking to, I think there is some static background noise. Looks like some challenge. Let's try to go. So I was just talking to Sundar some time back before we started the webinar. This is our 19th webinar. And for the first time, while we have got many industry experts from artificial intelligence who've been kind of managing GCCs, managing strong kind of practices. But for the first time, this is a blend of academician and an industry expert who has a very deep understanding of what we call deep learning. Having said that, I think the topic per se, research and innovation, evokes a lot of interest because artificial intelligence, while the subject practice per se has been there for the last 60 years, but in the last few years, we have seen a tremendous surge in terms of applications, adoption. By far, we are also seeing nations, countries talking about this. What I want to start in terms of getting the ball rolling, and I would like to start with Professor Arnab with you. While the subject has been there for artificial intelligence for quite a number of years, why it's being talked so much today? Why it's so relevant?
Can you please put me on the other connection? This connection is not working.
Professor, we can hear you. Please
Yeah,
continue.
yeah. I think that video has been disabled. So can you just allow the video on the other connection? Yeah.
Go ahead, Professor. We are able
Yeah.
to hear you.
Okay, fine. So one of the key things is that the while the artificial intelligence as a technology has been there for a long time, there was no computing power. And what we have seen in the last maybe 2 decades, starting from around 2000, there's been an explosion in computing power, and uh, that has really enabled the the creation of wonderful applications that has been thought about earlier but could not be implemented. Now with the technology in place, particularly the hardware uh, in place at an affordable cost, and uh, some of course some progress in both in methods as well as in the software aspects, we have seen a lot of interest and interesting applications in the field of artificial intelligence. And I think the current boom that we are seeing in the artificial intelligence space is largely happening due to this uh, twin progress of hardware as well as some very innovative software. And I forget the third pillar, that is the data. So what has happened is because of the abilities to gather large amount of data, many of these algorithms, which we nowadays call deep learning algorithms, we are able to train them a lot better. Earlier, these algorithms could be trained with only a few instances and therefore could do only very restrictive set of tasks. But with large data now available, some very sophisticated tasks can be attempted using the data available. So because of all this, we have seen a tremendous progress in this front in the last few years.
Sure. So if I pick up what you said, Professor Arnab, and you can go on mute because I think there's some static building. Coming to you, Sundar, NVIDIA invests a lot in computing solutions, kind of a big powerhouse when it comes to the quantum computing usage and all. But more importantly, from a viewpoint of adoption of AI, specifically, it's picked up in the last couple of years. Why do you see that happening? Is there something which has happened in the last few years which has compelled organizations, research institutes, and academia to look into this?
So, Samir, I attribute it to three main causes, and I think the professor touched upon it beautifully just now. The first one is though AI machine learning has been there for several decades, it had many false starts, and it always remained as an academic thing and never got used as pervasively as it is being today. So, what happened over the past 7 to 8 years' time? I would say three major changes happened, and one sort of led to the other. The first one is for AI to work well, one particular technology which is called deep learning, which is a subset of machine learning, really took it to bigger heights. And for deep learning to work, a very important prerequisite is you need humongous amounts of data, lots and lots and lots of data. No data, no deep learning, period. So what happened about 10 years ago is that the need for data was bridged from two different sources. The first source is IoT, which basically is anything and everything in this world got fitted with sensors. I always used to jokingly mention that from flying from rockets flying in the sky, milking cows, everything got fitted with data, with sensors, and they gave a lot of sensor data. So that is one source. The second source is what we call the social media, which I'm sure all of us are aware of. And media also uh, pumped in a lot of data. So thanks to these two sources, the non-availability of data that is needed for deep learning got bridged. The second one is these techniques need enormous amount of computing power. When I say computing power, it runs to the level of petaflops of computing in one system, and several such systems need to be clustered together for running practical deep learning problems. And the days of exaflop computing is not far away. That level of was not available until about 7-8 years ago, and that gap got bridged through the new computing techniques, the accelerated computing techniques, the parallel computing techniques from GPU computing. So both these things contributed availability of data from social media and from devices, sensors, and the advancement of accelerated computing through GPU computing bridged the gap of the computational power, and hence deep learning was reborn. And thanks to deep learning, you are able to reach levels for many problems, not for all problems. You are able to reach accuracy levels of mid 90s or high 90s. And that is the reason for AI to be reborn. And we are having this session today, and everybody is so excited about it. The third one is because these two gaps are bridged, a lot of research went into it, great academicians worked into it, great research institutions all over the world pumped their energy into making the algorithms better and better, which is an aftermath of these two developments. And hence the technology today is very ripe and has started getting adopted practically in a lot of scenarios in multiple segments.
Great. So if I take what you, Sundar, and Professor Arnab are mentioning, there is a lot of kind of, let's say, buoyancy about data, which has really proliferated. Digital, which is the social side of the kind of, let's say, data, has also been asked to kind of come into the picture because of structured, unstructured side of the variation. The third is, of course, the computing power, the GPU kind of processing speeds, and the whole quantum of how the algorithms are getting processed has gone up few notches up. Now, on the same side, and this is more like a question to both of you, and I want to start with Professor Arnab. Now, eventually, AI is all about mimicking the human brain, which is act, perceive, learn, think. Now, with the applications in the image, voice, text, and video side of analytics getting more sophisticated, what are the technology advancements, sophistication, use cases, applications of you are seeing in this space? So, Professor Arnab, you can start first.
In hello.
So, Professor, I think you have a static. Can you please disconnect the phone and just speak in the usual way, what you started with, please?
I think there is some problem that is getting frozen. Now again, it has got frozen. So I will use the, actually I will just close the other one and just use the phone. Yeah.
Yes, just use the phone, please.
I think this is creating a lot of problem. Yeah.
Go ahead. We are able to. Go ahead, please.
Yeah. So, so I think as far as the technology is concerned, I think there's been some tremendous advancements in terms of thinking. So, so the main algorithm for training neural networks, the backpropagation, I think has now more than 2 decades of history, and it had served its purpose well, and is still used quite often for training simple networks. But then some very exciting stuff happened in terms of developing methods for dealing with with images, and the convolutional neural networks came in place. And subsequently, we have seen some interesting networks in the form of recurrent neural networks, the LSTM networks, the long short-term memory networks. So these neural networks needed tweaking of the basic backpropagation algorithm to work well, and that happened. So research in that field progressed so that some of the large challenges associated with these complicated networks got solved, and that was one big thing in terms of being able to implement high sophisticated reinforcement learning algorithms as is currently being done by this latest products. But that has been largely aided by the technology. We should not forget that most of these algorithms are extremely computing hungry. So good high quality chips played a very important role in being able to provide that computing support, and the availability of commodity hardware and GPUs were all very helpful in accomplishing this task. Now, what kind of tasks we have been able to achieve? Most of the audience, I am sure, may have looked at the Sundar Pichai's video on the Google Duplex. And the Google Duplex is a wonderful product. It's a language, it's a decision support tool, and it's wonderful because it practically obviates need of human intervention. I'm not saying that it completely eliminates, but it reduces the human touch. And if you look at the product and sort of go back to the early days of computing and the work of the celebrated mathematician Alan Turing, Turing actually had a test called the Turing test. And the Turing test essentially said that if you are talking to a machine and you cannot make out from the answers that whether you are talking to a machine or to a human. So let me put that once again. So suppose a human is talking to some agent, and from the answers given by that agent, you cannot really make out whether you have actually talked to a human agent or a machine agent. Then you will be assumed to have passed the Turing test. Now, the demonstration video that was so widely circulated is a noteworthy step because that clearly showed that the Google Duplex algorithm passes the Turing test. And actually, there were several instances where the person could not figure out from the answers whether the person was talking to a machine or to a human. So I think that is a great accomplishment, and we have seen Google Assistant, Siri, Alexa, and all these chatbots or other assistants that has been created by these major technology companies are playing a key role in evangelizing AI. So AI was earlier available to a select set of people, the technologists, the educationists, and so on. Now, I think with these kind of tools coming in, particularly these automated assistants, I think AI would be able to permeate far deeper into organizations and a society in general.
Great. So I'll talk about that automated intelligence and augmented intelligence, Professor Arnab, with you in a bit. Sundar, I want to switch to you and hear your views, please. Sundar, you're on mute.
I would like to build upon what Professor mentioned. Like he said, the CNNs for generally for image and video, and RNNs, which is neural networks for time series and speech-like problems, have always been there. But a lot of new networks which are much better and yielded better accuracies, better results were born. I would like to mention a couple of them which really changed the way machine learning, deep learning has been working. The top amongst them is what we call as called as GANs, which is generative adversarial networks. That really changed the way humans have been working. And without going too much into details, I mean, it would suffice to say that GANs actually, in a way, they are like two networks working in unison, and one is trying to generate, something which will try to cheat the other one, and the other one has to find out that it has been cheated. And through that process, this will try to learn. The entire network complex will try to learn. So that really took the conventional CNN accuracies to a big leap, through a big leap. The second one is reinforcement learning, which also is a very interesting technique. So to make it easier to understand reinforcement, how did we learn to ride a bicycle? We learn to ride a bicycle and the objective. What is the objective while learning a bicycle? Is to ensure that it goes in a straight line and you don't fall off, right? So how did you learn? First, when you got onto the bicycle, you fell down. It never went in a straight line. But through the process of falling down and through the process of not going in a straight line, your body sort of understood what needs to be done in order to not fall down and not go to avoid going in a straight line. So by multiple times falling down and the cycle going in the wrong direction, you learned it. So when you go in a straight line, you are awarded. The reward is nothing but not falling down. So just like your body learns how to ride a bicycle by going through multiple mistakes and learning from these mistakes, if you are able to train a neural network, which is the backbone of deep learning algorithms, if you are able to do that, that is what reinforcement learning is. But then there's a subtle difference between deep learning and reinforcement learning. I don't want to go that deep into it in this forum. So that is another interesting thing that happened. The third one, which really has taken the entire world by storm, I would say, is what we call as transformers, which basically is a new technique that is used for.
Can you say that again, Sundar? We missed
new technique. It is.
What is the new technique you talked about? Can you say that again, please?
Transformers.
Okay.
Transformers, yeah. Which once again, I mean, it's not really a new technique in the real sense of the word, but it has been refined a lot, and that has really aided in how natural language processing, NLP, has evolved in the last couple of years. Breathtaking speed, the way NLP has evolved in the last couple of, and that is thanks to the comparatively new technology using transformers, particularly one particular approach called as BERT, B-E-R-T, BERT, that really has taken this technology, the NLP, to unprecedented levels of accuracy. And the key here is contextualization of speech. Like Professor mentioned, when I am talking to an agent, and if I'm not able to differentiate whether the agent who is answering back to me is a machine or a human being, I need contextualization. When I say he, when I use a pronoun called he, if you and I are talking and I suddenly insert the word he or she or it, you will be able to contextualize and associate a name to the pronoun he. But it is not at all easy to make a machine to do that. It might summon. If you think about it, you will know. For example, if I say a policeman and the thief, the police was chasing the thief, and everybody was happy that he fell down. The policeman was chasing the thief, and everybody was happy when he fell down. So who is he here? Question: who is he here? Can somebody help me with an answer? The policeman was.
They're all mute. They're all mute actually. So we'll go with the discussion, please.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. So what I was telling is contextualization of speech. I was trying to give an example, and I'm telling, hey, if a policeman is chasing a thief and he fell down and everybody was happy, we all know that he refers to the thief, because nobody will be happy if the policeman fell down while chasing a thief. How do I teach a machine that he here refers to the thief and not a policeman? That is what I contextualization. And unless contextualization is incorporated in conversational AI, in conversational robots, the one which Professor explained, where you are not even able to identify whether the agent answering to is a human being or a machine, is not going to be practical. And this type of advancements are happening in the world, which not only makes it very exciting and interesting to talk about, but more importantly, is making it a practical one, which can be opened up for real world usage.
Great, great. So, listening to that, and Sundar, you mentioned about the generative adversarial network, the GANs kind of a thing, and also posed a very specific question in terms of identification where exactly this whole thing belongs. Now, one of the thing which has come up as we talk about these as advancements and applications within artificial intelligence, and we are talking about a whole stream, whether it's conversational AI or image classification, or we're talking about computer vision, or even let's say the NLP and the NLU side. The bias in the algorithms is the most talked about thing, because today we've seen those examples from Amazon in terms of the hiring issues and concern, and there has been many kind of, let's say, other I would say illustrations over there. Now, starting with you, Sundar, I want to take your opinion first and switch to Professor about this whole bias in algorithms. Now, over there, the propensity to look at, let's say, for any practitioner is, okay, let's look at in a mode of champion challenger, let's keep kind of updating what macro micro kind of indicators are, and also looking at a company specific view in terms of saying, okay, this is where the variables needs to be adjusted. But still, there is more to that. What exactly the things needs to happen when it comes to mitigating the bias in algorithms?
So, Samir, most of the times it is not the algorithm that is biased. Okay, the algorithm, most of the times it's not biased. It is the data that you use for training an algorithm that inserts a bias in the results. Let me explain this with the help of a simple example. Let us say you have never ever seen an Indian. You have only seen Caucasians. Okay, let's assume that your brain has been trained to the demographics of a Caucasian, and you have never ever seen an Indian, right? So when you see an Indian for the first time in your life, your all your choices, your judgments, your assumptions of the Indians parameters will all be biased towards Caucasians, because your brain has never ever seen an Indian, right? Do you agree with me? That's what precisely happens in a neural network also. Let us say if a neural network has been trained using the demographics, using the data of one set of population, and suddenly if you try to test it with a new population to which it has not been exposed, there is obviously you can expect the results to be biased towards that which for which it has been trained for. And that is something which is bound to happen if you think about the human collaboration that I explained earlier. And so most of the times it is not the algorithm that is biased, it is the data that is biased. Data which was used to be training, which if it conforms to one particular demographics or description or segmentation, that inserts a bias in the results that get thrown out. So to your second question, how do I mitigate that? The answer is there in whatever I explained earlier. The data, the target of deployment of the algorithm has to be clearly defined. And then once the target is defined, what are all the variations that can be expected in the population towards which it should be deployed should be analyzed, and the training has to include all those different sets of data, all those variations that we present in the data. And if that is done thoroughly, then there is a high chance that you won't get biased results when you run your actual problems.
Wonderful, wonderful. Professor Arnab, your views, please.
Yeah, I enjoyed the way Sundar explained this. This is a very tricky issue. While a lot of the blame has been given to the algorithms, it is actually the problem with the data. So there has been a fair amount of research which is being directed in this field, where we are trying to correct the data. So basically, this would mean that we contextualize by taking into account only that part of the data which is possibly relevant for us. As the beautiful example that he gave, that if most of the data is for the Caucasians and you are trying to apply the algorithm with Asian population, you need to adapt that in some way through some correction of the data so that it doesn't give wrong result for Asians. It's easier said than done, and that is something that a lot of work is being directed at. Um, it gives rise to big ethical challenges because we also have to be sure that because of the nature of the data, some key aspects or key variables of discrimination, which has been historically there, is not replicated by the algorithm. Discrimination based on the gender, discrimination based on some other social order should not creep into these algorithms. Now, you will say that, well, you are saying at one point of time that the algorithms are not biased, and you are also saying that the bias can creep in. How are they two possible? Uh, Now, one has to recognize that all these algorithms will be trained on the data. And if the data always says that if the person belongs to category X, then the loan has to be rejected. Then, as we train this algorithm, the algorithm will learn uh, because of the predominance of these kind of data in the historical data pool, that whenever this character X comes up, or category X comes up, then the decision for that will be a rejection of the loan. Now, that was maybe a historical injustice, and that needs to be corrected. But when you correct this injustice, how do you correct it? You should not correct it in a way that it creates a reverse prejudice. So it's a very tricky area, and I think this will require a fair amount of research to be able to do that well, so that we are able to create data sets which are much more fairer. And when we say much more fairer, it's indeed fairer. That means that these algorithms will not be biased for or against based on some critical parameters. Now, what are these critical parameters? Are they individual, or are they in a group? How do you do this process? Do you allow human intervention to do this? There are both sides of the coin. You can allow human intervention, but there is always a chance that the bias can get in the other direction. So therefore, how do you really do that well is something that I think in the next few years, a lot of research will go into. And we look forward to that kind of research, because that is something that will be required immensely if we have to create a good algorithm or good AI.
Great. Now, I think both of you explained that very nicely in terms of data to be more fairer and data to be more kind of, let's say, uh, imminent in terms of any distortions or any kind of let's say, not to have a kind of a, let's say, biased kind of a, let's say, aspect over there. Linked to this is also, which is a thing which always being talked about, is now we are also talking about data from the non-obvious sources, which has started coming in. When we say non-obvious sources, it's like distilling signals from the noise kind of thing, which is that if the CEOs are kind of, let's say, talking something through their voice modulation, through the kind of, let's say, different techniques, can we gauge how truthful they are in terms of dissecting the numbers or the financial figures? Now, this requires, going back to what Sundar and uh, Professor Arnab, what you were saying in the earlier narrative, a huge kind of a, let's say, crunching, a huge kind of a, let's say, quantum jump in terms of machine learning led algorithms, a lot of ensemble techniques. Now the question over there comes in, organizations today are looking at fast tracking their AI journey, which means immediately they need to be up there on catching up with the machine learning capabilities. Now, in your viewpoint, Professor, I want to start with you, and Sundar, I'll follow it up with the same question. In your view today, are we saying that unless the foundational layers of data infrastructure is not laid, it's premature to jump to building machine learning enabled algorithms, or there is a way to fast track AI adoption?
Very important question and a difficult one. So I will answer it in two parts. One is that the organization, I assume that the organization has lots of data. So if that is the case, maybe through a concerted effort to get that data into one place and then starting up a high-end machine learning program would be possible.
Sure.
But while I say it is possible, I'm not saying that it is entirely desirable, because I think that there is a journey of cultural adaptation that also needs to be done. So the organization not only must have the machine learning capability, but also be comfortable about using that capability, so that they are sort of using the capability in the correct way. The second is that for organizations that do not have the data. Now, for them, of course, the journey will be a little slower, but I think that they can begin with the older set of algorithms, like the statistically based algorithms, which are not so data hungry. The machine learning algorithms are data hungry as it stands now, but the statistical algorithms are far less data hungry compared to that. And they can start with those algorithms, and since they will be starting at a low base, the benefits will be huge. So there is no point in deferring adoption of analytics and AI simply because you do not have data. You can just start it, and over a period of time, as you get data, you can move up to having more sophisticated algorithms.
Sure. Sundar, your opinion, please.
So it's extraordinarily important. I can't emphasize more on this, to define your goals first, right? Everybody is under pressure to adopt AI. Everybody, everyone who's working in a corporate, right? But it's important that you define your goals. What is that you want to achieve? Just because a neighbor or a corporate or a competitor has adopted, it's not necessary. It's important that you define your goals and define your journey. What is that you want to achieve in 3 months, 6 months from now, 3 years from now? And that milestones have to be very, very, very clearly fixed, because adoption of AI in a traditional corporate or an enterprise is a journey. It is not a switch on, switch off. You cannot change it like the flip of a switch. And ultimately, your goal should be to establish AI as a practice, right? Let me explain the term AI as a practice. What do I mean by AI as a practice, right? It is this. Today, IT is a practice. There is a well-established procedure and protocol and rules and regulations and preferred vendors and golden images and backup protocols and you what not. It is established for a company. If a 5,000 member company needs to buy a set of laptops for their new employees, it can happen in a jiffy. There is no problem, because it is established as a practice. HR is a practice today. A big company, again, a 5,000 member company, which could have 20 departments. You need to recruit to at any level, from a fresher to the topmost person, a senior vice president. There is a well-established protocol, and it can happen. It just to follow the process. No, to struggle to do that. That is what I mean by establishing as a practice. So AI has to be established as a practice so that it permeates through all walks of the organization. And that is the journey. So once that is understood and organizations clearly have their milestones and goals defined, that is when the adoption starts. The AI, which I always believe, and I tell whenever I talk to my people is that to many of the people with whom I interact is that you need to invest. There is no second thoughts about it. When you say invest, you need to invest in the right computing resources. You need to invest in getting the right data, either from your own sources or from sources from which you can get it. You need to invest in skill set, and you need to invest in developing the existing workforce and make them learn the new things. It is absurd. I mean, I have been amused when very senior people have spoken to me, hey, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to pick up three or four of my bright engineers, and I'm going to assign, they are anyway not married. And so they can stay back at home from in the office after 5 o'clock. And every day for 2 hours, they're going to do this project. No, it's not going to work, right? You need to have the right vision and the right mind to invest in whatever is needed, be it computing resources or data gathering, data cleaning, and the right resources in terms of manpower, training, skill set development, etc. This needs investment. And that is something which I would strongly urge, and be prepared for it, and don't venture into it until you are ready to invest. That is the second thing I would say. And the last thing,
So I'll just chime in, Sundar, because there are questions coming in. I'm
sure.
sorry, but I have to uh, kind of, let's say, talk about some of these things. And one of the thing which stuck me, and you've touched the right chord, AI as a practice. I think that's been a bone of contention for many of us who are in this area for long. The field, the practice per se requires standardization, as you were mentioning, a lot of governance and a lot of kind of methodologies and frameworks which are absolutely defined, absolutely, I would say, standardized to to the expectation. Whosoever wants to pick it up goes through a protocol, as you rightly said, and understand that, look, there is no kind of a fluff, or there is no black box over there. So we'll come to that, because that's a very interesting area. But there is a very interesting question which I want to take to both of you. This has come in, and this actually is very pertinent to the theme what we are discussing. Now, given how we've seen a shift in technology today, suddenly legacy skills went away, quality engineers, I mean, ADM folks, kind of a thing, plain Java guys just got absolutely obsolete from our skills. Now, with the advent of automation in terms of machine learning, today we have a best of the breed, what we call data scientists and data engineers. But few years from now, when sophistication gets more inbuilt, more embedded within the organizations at some level, we don't know the years, but the question is more about, will data scientists be replaced with the sophistication of machine learning and high-end usage of algorithms which are automated? So any one of you can take this thing first, but it's a very interesting question. I thought, let me take that.
My honest answer is I don't know. That's my honest answer. But I can give you what I feel will happen. I don't think human power will ever be conquered. Human power will reign supreme. That's what I feel. It's the skill set that is needed will keep on changing. Will keep getting different. I don't want to call it as better, because it's not that the previous one was worse than what it is today. We'll only start getting different. I really don't think that human supremacy will ever be questioned or defeated, and I don't want that. Obviously, I don't never ever want that to happen. That's my gut feeling, Samir, and I can only share my gut feeling. It's not that I have a proof for whatever I told. Yes.
Sure. Professor Arnab?
So my feeling is Yeah, my feeling is that some part of the apprehension may be true. We are seeing that automatic code generators are coming, and it might actually happen that parts of the skill, particularly the coding part of it, may actually be replaced over a period of time. But one has to note that artificial intelligence is a moving goalpost. So there will be a lot of scope of actually innovating and creating newer kind of systems. And that part, I think, AI will not be wherever we are right now, the AI that we can see or we can foresee for the next 10 years may not be able to do that. So creating new algorithms, creating new adaptations of the algorithms for particularly notorious problems may not be possible automatically. So for simple problems where maybe just a tweaking of a standard tool is to be, or a standard algorithm has to be done, maybe yes, but not for more complicated problems.
Sure, sure. So I think sticking on to you, Professor Arnav, and this is a question I had, but coincidingly, it's also a question we have from one of the participant, specifically on the research. We got to do a lot of, I would say, emphasis and impetus on research in terms of AI. China has close to about 52,000 research papers coming out of AI every year. US is not far behind, 47,000 odd. India is absolutely in single digit, and that too low single digits. Having said that, research is a very critical component for the advancement of artificial intelligence. Specifically, we are talking about countries today trying to establish their supremacy because of artificial intelligence, like China, US are great examples, and a lot of other 28 countries have their own AI policy. Now, specifically, Professor Arnab, this is a question to you. Why, or rather, let's take out the why piece. What needs to be done to promote more research in artificial intelligence in India?
This is a question which requires a long answer, but I will just sort of tell you in brief what my feeling is.
Sure.
I think artificial intelligence is not a standalone subject. It actually rides on pillars such as computer science and high-end computer science. It rides on statistics. Um, it also rides on an ability to transform real-life problems into abstract models. So I would presume that some understanding of management aspects is also important. Now, unless we have a program which actually gels these three things, it would be hard to create path-breaking research in this field. And if you look at the Indian institutions, there is hardly any program which is along these lines. The only program which I can think of, and it can be an advertisement of that program, sorry about that, is a program created by IIM Calcutta, IIT Kharagpur, and Indian Statistical Institute. That's I think is one of the right kind of programs that they have done, though I do not know what kind of output is coming out and things like that. So, but I think that kind of a holistic view is required, and the demand is very high. That means you will have to have people who have multiple skills. Now that may be difficult to achieve in the short run. So what we will require is sort of cross-learning programs or cross-learning teams. So for example, you get people in computer science and quickly upskill them to the extent possible to have some essential skills in statistics, and let them work with a trained statistics person when they're doing uncertainty modeling. So this kind of a team approach needs to be developed in the short run. And in the long run, of course, we will require dedicated programs where these skills will be built. And until we have people with these skills, and not only skills in silos, producing path-breaking research, which will also have outstanding applications, would be difficult. for any country, including India. That investment has been done by United States over last 50 years. That investment, at least it appears to me, I do not know because I am not so familiar with Chinese research in this field, but I get that they're investing very heavily in that kind of talent pool. So possibly they're doing the right things, and any country which aspires to become an AI powerhouse will have to do those same things.
Great. So, Sundar, I want to shift one question which has come in relevant. I'll just kind of read what verbatim it's there. Whilst data scientist is considered to be a very, very kind of a sought after profession today, but the existing community of data scientists, and we have many of them who are attending the webinar today, they have a fear of unknown. The fear of unknown is, would they be irrelevant at some point of time? Are the skills what they are having today, or the kind of, let's say, tools, technologies, what they are kind of acquainted with, will get irrelevant or obsolete? What is that they should be doing today? And this is exactly for some of them who are already in the field from a data scientist community. What is that they should be doing to stay relevant?
Open to change. It's as simple as that. And that is true not only for data scientists, anybody who is working even on other allied areas in the IT industry. It is such a dynamic industry. I mean, I work for the company who is at the center stage of AI today, deep learning, machine learning today, NVIDIA. And I do this every day. I find it very difficult to keep in pace with the technology, what is happening every day, because it's so dynamic, it's moving so fast. So I wouldn't confine this answer only to data scientists. I would say this is a response to everybody who is there in the IT industry. If you really want to be relevant always, you need to keep your eyes and ears open, be ready to learn, relearn, and keep upgrading yourselves. That's the only way to do it. And the data scientists need not be overtly worried about whether they will become irrelevant in the next 3 years, 5 years. I don't think that's going to happen. But so long as you are dynamic and you are open to adopting changes and you are able to learn things faster and as necessary, I don't think anyone will become irrelevant in any organization.
I like the word what you started with, open for change, because I think that's what this pandemic has taught us actually. How things are.
So I'll just add a point, Samir. Yeah.
Please.
So I totally agree with Sundar. Learn, unlearn, and relearn should be the theme. And if a data scientist has this question in mind, I think we should always answer yes. Because the data scientist, the current skills will become irrelevant in 4 or 5 years, and they will have to relearn the new skills. So the current form of the data scientist may be dead, but a new form of the data scientist will come. And they should always be prepared for that. And that is going to happen at least for 1 to 2 decades. So I think most of the young data scientists will not be able to escape that.
Great. So it's a question to both of you, switching gears and sticking on to research. And this question has also come in from one of our participants. Very relevant question. Research and is kind of a very central thing for both industry as well as academia today, because industry has realized the relevance of research. Now, the fact over there, if we think about our current system of thesis today, generating a research period, let's face it, it's very tough, it's laborious, while everything is required in terms of incorporating that, but the current model in terms of how the industry wants, in terms of having a research oriented paper from a thesis perspective, is not working out. And that's where some of these dissonance around industry academic collaboration happens, because industry wants fast results and academia wants absolutely a very structured, methodical way of going through a research. Is there a middle path somewhere where both industry and academia realize that given the velocity of change and technologies, specifically how research can be reoriented or reimagined to produce more faster results for the enterprises and for humanity and society as well. Open to both of you, please. Anyone can take it.
Sundar, you want to go first?
Sure. I mean, the answer is yes. I mean, certainly, yes, Samir. So long as the research that happens in the academia is relevant to the industry and not confined to being bookish or just a methodology of earning a PhD. Are fulfilling the needs of a PhD. It is more relevant to the industry and which can practically be applied. Yes, that's where the middle path can be found out, and vice versa is also true. Industry should work with academia in a meaningful way, and ensure that there is a collaboration and there's a coordination that is happening in the efforts between both these organizations, which are extraordinarily important. They complement one another, they help one another, and so long as that coordination happens, we will scale newer heights, is what I feel.
Sure. Professor Arnab?
I think the problem is, to a great extent, the system of rewarding academic work and business applications are right now divergent. So I think the reward that a researcher gets is through publication of papers, whereas the rewards that an industry gets is through patents and new products and so on.
Correct.
Now, they are actually conflicting, because once you have a patent, you cannot publish that work, at least for some time. And when you are publishing that work, it's possibly not patentable. Though, these are all broad terms. Now, a middle path would involve a sort of a realization that academia and the industry sort of agrees to have a common thing. Say, for example, once you recognize that a researcher in this field will have to publish a paper, and then you will possibly have to take the pain of providing data which is suitably masked, and you should not have a feeling that that because you have released this data, your competitors will have an advantage. Okay, so if this kind of an understanding is possible among organizations, I have seen most of the senior leaders in the organization agree to that. In fact, my experience with dealing with senior leaders is that they've been very pleasant and they understand it. But in terms of operationalizing at a lower level, often it gets stuck because your legal team will want you to sign some agreements, and that agreement may have certain clauses, some exclusivity clauses, and that creates a whole lot of problem in these kind of arrangements. Otherwise, I think this is the way forward. And
Professor Laha, sorry, we have a crunch on time, and I want to take a very specific but last question, please, which is more about, and it's a good question that we want opinion from both of you, rather viewpoints. Please tell us top 3 innovations in artificial intelligence in the time to come. Top 3 AI innovations in the time to come.
Transportation will change. The way we commute will change immensely. And the epitome of AI always have felt is autonomous machine. So that is something big. Healthcare is set to change, and when I say healthcare, it is just not diagnostics. The way drugs are going to be discovered, the way the drug discovery time is going to get shortened, thanks to your ability to predict how a drug is going to react with a protein molecule, rather than waiting for 10 years to find out how it is reacting. Your ability to predict is going to bring down the drug discovery cycle times in a big way. And there cannot be a better time than what it is now, which can explain the significance of bringing down the discovery of a drug. These are the two top things. I mean, I'm not able to think.
Urban mobility and healthcare. Great. Dr. Arnab, over to you.
Healthcare, definitely. Healthcare would be, it is up for disruption, and and if you have seen, if some of the participants have already seen the demonstration of Alexa with Babylon, would get a sense of where the future is heading, and it will be immensely beneficial for our country. The second will be education. I think education is up for a massive disruption as we get into the era of personalized learning. And I think there will be huge push on AI on personalized learning, and maybe all the data that has been gathered by the platforms due to this pandemic, that is going to be a great thing. The transformation of work, including transportation, is another thing that we will be looking at. We may actually see organizations working very differently, aided by AI in the coming years.
Wonderful, wonderful. I think if I just blend this whole narrative for last 60 minutes, Sundar and Professor Arnav, I think it was a wise decision, at least on my behalf, to get you both on one platform. And it's been immensely engrossing, very, very insightful, and must say the genres of innovation research, what you had actually demonstrated in last 60 minutes in terms of artificial arena has been absolutely very enriching. The kind of application areas, the kind of, let's say, frameworks you talked about, and the kind of, let's say, advancements and sophistications you talked about in AI leaves everyone this particular question that, look, we are not an expert, we are all learning. And thank you so much for sharing that narratives with a very unassuming kind of a tone, though we all know both of you are extremely successful and very well adapted in terms of what changes are happening. And thank you so much for your time. It's an honor and privilege to have you on our webinar session. Thank you so much. And thanks
Thank you,
everyone
Samir.
who participated.
Thanks to all participants for listening.
And sorry for the glitch. We'll ensure that it's not there next time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Samir. Thank you, Professor Arnab. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Sundar.